Today I'm going to be talking about something I felt passionately about since I was a little kid. The Jem and Jerrica love triangle was trifling and taught little girls to be doormats. But before I start my rant, a message from me. So a few years ago I did a thing. I wrote a novel titled The Fairy Princess Enter into Time. You can see the fairy princess here on my t-shirt. The book is about a young girl from the south side of Chicago who discovers she's a fairy princess. Her godmother is kidnapped and she must learn how to use her powers while trying to save her. The book is available on Amazon and Rakuten Kobo. T-shirts and other merch are available on my website, thefairyprincess.net. Links are in the description. For those who are unaware, Jem was a cartoon about a young woman named Jerrica who inherited a foster home and a music label from her dead father. Her father also secretly created a hologram machine named Synergy. When the foster home was in financial trouble, Jerrica decided to use the music label to fund the foster home. So she had Synergy create holograms for her and her friends, and they created a music group using their secret holographic identities. Jerrica's alternate identity was named Jem, and the group was called Jem and the Holograms. Now, the manager of the group was Rio, Jerrica's boyfriend. Rio did not know that Jem and Jerrica was the same person, even though he never saw them in the same room together. Eventually, Rio would start dating Jerrica and Jem at the same time. Even as a child, I knew the Jem, Rio, Jerrica love triangle was beyond trifling. Rio wasn't just some guy interested in two different girls. Rio was Jerrica's boyfriend, and he was dating her and Jem at the same time. Yes, Jem and Jerrica was the same person, but he didn't know that. And the fact that Jerrica let him get away with it was so infuriating. But then in season 3, they decided to address this in an episode. So basically, Jerrica gets tired of Rio being all up in Jem's grill and starts to fight with him. Rio has the nerve to tell her that Jem would never act this way, then breaks up with her. Instead of wishing him good riddance and moving on with her life, Jerrica takes the advice of an oracle, who is just Synergy in disguise, and creates a new holographic identity named Jamie. So Jerrica goes up to Rio as Jamie, and he immediately falls for her. But somehow they are interrupted by another singer who is trying to get with Rio, and Jerrica thinks that Rio's trying to get with her also. But the oracle convinces Jerrica that Rio isn't just running after random chicks, he's in love with her core personality. Whatever. But Jerrica, gullible fool, believes it. So she makes up with Rio and they get back together. I was way too young to have been in a relationship, but even I knew that Synergy's explanation that Rio was attracted to all of Jerrica's alternate personalities because he was just attracted to her was complete and utter bullshit. Rio was a 3-time cheater, and no excuse can make up for that. I think this episode was written because even the writers knew back then that the Jem, Rio, Jerrica love triangle was inherently problematic. Rio was openly dating 2 different women, and since both of the women was the same woman, they were both aware of it. The traditional love triangle trope usually takes on 2 different forms. Either it's one person who's interested in 2 different people, yet they aren't involved with either one, or one person is dating one person and yet has major chemistry with another person but doesn't cross the line. One example of a very similar triangle to Jem, Rio, Jerrica comes from season 9 of Smallville. It was Clark, Lois, and Clark's alternate ego, the Blur. Clark and Lois was in a relationship, but Clark also talked to Lois as the Blur. By doing this, he was able to confide in her without telling her his secret. Lois had a very obvious crush on the Blur, but never crossed the line. It eventually came to a head when Lois got herself in trouble and Clark had to rescue her as the Blur. After she was safe, Clark stood in the shadows and planted a kiss on her. Mind you, Clark initiated the kiss. And when it was over, Lois knew that Clark was the Blur. Unlike Rio, who kissed Jem and Jerrica all the time and didn't realize he was kissing the same person. So in the episode that was supposed to absolve Rio of his guilt, he compares Jem to Jerrica unfavorably.
Look, what's with you? Jem never acts this way.
Are you kidding me? The first time I watched that episode, I remember thinking, this is weak sauce. Like, I, as a member of the audience, was supposed to forgive Rio because he wasn't cheating on Jerrica. He was just attracted to her core personality. But I wasn't buying it. To me, he was just a dog who couldn't keep his hands to himself. And the fact that they were trying to convince me otherwise just pissed me off. Like, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. Rio was attracted to other women because he was a cheating cheater. Because no matter how attracted to those other women he was in a committed relationship. And he could have controlled himself and left those other women alone. But no. He sees a woman he's attracted to and is immediately all up in her grill because fidelity ain't in him. Like, how hard is it to be faithful? Those holograms were scientific, not magical. They didn't compel him to act on his attractions. He just did, because he's a cheater. And this episode taught little girls all the wrong relationship lessons. Like, ignore all his red flags because way deep down he loves only you. Or, I'm the reason he's cheating on me. Luckily, I saw through the BS and saw Rio for what he really was. But there's no telling how many little girls internalized this message. How many of you have watched Jem? Do you remember this episode? Did you think it was garbage the first time you saw it? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know if there's something that you would like to see me talk about. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to know the next time I upload or go live. Thanks.